All right, how y'all doing? Thanks for tuning into my channel. I was kind of going over this Boss product here. This is a pretty cool effects unit, amp model effects unit. You know, it's really an effects processor, but it's got some modeling aspects to it. And one of the cool things about it is that uh, you can download a impulse response and update the impulse response. So this unit, for the price and for what it does, I think it's pretty cool. I think it does the job, does the trick really well. It's got a lot of features that you can work through with it. It does a whole lot. As far as setting up different parameters. You can do live sets. You can create your own presets from the scratch up. You can go and grab a pre-existing preset and modify it from there. Overall, it's a really well constructed, well built unit. It's reliable, sounds good, and I've been using it for tracking some stuff direct, and it's worked out fairly well overall. One of the things that I think is really cool about it is the fact that you can upload your own impulse responses directly to this, and that's a pretty cool feature to be able to grab an impulse response or create an impulse response for a speaker, because that's really the thing that makes amp modeling sound closer to the real recorded amp is to get a good quality impulse response of a speaker and a microphone element that's picking up that response. And what the modeler does is that it takes that impulse response, which is basically like a tone that is run through the speaker and the microphone. It picks it up, records it, and then takes that impulse response as the foundation for when you're running the audio, your guitar signal into the amp modeler. Out of that amp modeler, it's recreating that impulse response, and that makes just light years difference between a tone that sounds digital versus a tone that sounds kind of more natural to the ears. And so this there's a couple of things to kind of think about when you get this thing. Is that you have to make sure that you load up the driver first before you connect the USB connection, and then once you've loaded the driver, then you can connect the USB and the software also. But you would have that downloaded and the driver first, then the software, then connect it with the USB to be able to and to use the software. You'd have to have it up to the current, so you'd probably have to do the driver first. And if you're going to upload the firmware in this, which I had to, it was an older 1.13 version, and I'd uploaded the 2.0 version, which is the current version, and then I was able to connect with the software at that point. And then, so we'll pull up the software interface. But the first thing that I did on the impulse response is, you can go and you can download from Celestion. There's a free impulse response that you can download. There are other impulse responses that you can buy from Celestion, or you can make one yourself. And there's other folks that kind of show you how to do that out there. There's some YouTubes where I might try to do one and show that process of how I make one here and create an impulse response that I can download into the processor. And to be able to do that, so once you've set that up, and you can see here that so once you open the software, you set your MIDI out in and out to GT, and then that opens up the IR loader. And so now that I'm connected, it shows me what I already have loaded in there. And then if I want to add additional impulse responses, I just go to load, and then I can select the impulse response that I want to do. And you can do 44.1, 48, 96, and it's basically just sort of a wave file, as you can see. And so we upload that, impulse response into the software, and of course it takes a little bit to do. It's kind of the larger WAV file takes a little bit longer to load up, but it's the thing that makes the difference really in amp modeling is the impulse response and getting that sound that you like to hear between a microphone and the speaker itself, and that makes all the difference in the world as far as amp modeling is concerned. And getting that tone that just doesn't quite sound digital, and so there it is. So there it's uploaded, and then you can load it into which user file that you want to load it into, and so that's pretty much. It's really that easy to do an impulse response. It's really not that big of a process once you kind of get it figured out and get your GT 1000 connected with USB. It's really easy to do. And then from there, you would go into the software itself to be able to select it on the input. But and that's kind of the cool thing about this unit is that it allows you to you can select you can look through the chain there. You've got sort of a chain of effects. It's almost set up like a pedal board to be able to see the effects chain of, and then and you can turn the different channel selection on and off. You can turn the compression on and off, that kind of thing on this channel of what's programmed, and that's by setting it in manual mode. So from that top interface, from those three buttons, you can do manual mode or you can do tuner mode just by clicking the two buttons to the left or right, and just out of the box, that kind of gives you some control functionality from the interface itself without plugging into the software. And we'll take a look at that in a second. So we've got our IR loaded in, and then we're going to open up the software and take a look at the software itself. And this is so once you've opened it up, it takes a minute for it to connect, and this is showing you that it's connecting. If it doesn't connect, it'll bring a prompt that it's not connecting. If it's showing that there's any issues with that. And as you can see here, that's sort of the effects chain. It mirrors what we see on the interface itself when you go into the channel, the channels on the interface. Is you see the input from the source and the routing of the effects all the way through the channel selection and back-end effects all the way through to your outputs. And you can set it up. You can turn the impulse response off. You can the speaker off if you're going out into an amplifier, and you don't want to have that speaker set up. But there's a bunch of presets that you can download through Tone Central, and from here you can create a live set depending on what channels you want to have available for, say, like a particular live show, that kind of thing. But all that's configured in here through the software. Yeah, and you've got two different sort of you've got a preset, which is all the standard presets that aren't changeable than the user presets, and then so the user configurations you can save onto each one of those in particular. However you modify it, whatever you want to do, you can take a pre-existing preset that was already created, modify it a little bit, save it with a new name, give it a new name, and create all that within the user. And then the regular preset has just all those different, if you're just looking for exploring different sounds and you need something spacey, you look through this and you might even find like you might find something that says spaced out. Let's, you can give that a listen and see how that sounds, see if that works for your project. And if it's something you want to save for later, you can move it over into a user, do modifications on it, and save it as a user preset. So there is some of these amp sort of amp sims that were created, amp presets. They call it the starter collection. You can do the humbucker version or the single coil version. They're just kind of set up in particular to work best with the humbucker or the single coil. And you can bring in that that tone and modify it from there. You can do your effects routing however you want to do it. You can change EQ settings, add more gain, take more gain between your two different channels. So it's almost a way as if you think of it in terms of an amplifier, just a bare bones amplifier that you can add some things like compression or an effect or that kind of stuff to, and then add particular control to it on the unit itself with the additional buttons, and then you can add other controllers like a volume control and additional on the control ports that it has on it. It's got 2 additional control ports that you can do up to 4 additional buttons, or you could have a volume controller, 2 volume controls. You could do like a wah type control on one of them. And you can even have it change with presets on maybe one preset it controls volume, the other preset it controls how much delay time is used. Another preset it controls how much volume or how much wah effect you're using. So it's a pretty cool unit. I think it's for what it does and for compared to a lot of other stuff that's out there, it's pretty cost effective. I do see that a lot of folks have a hard time with the software end of it. They're not as big of a fan as with the software interface. It seems to me if you just spend a little time with it and just sort of think of it in terms of this is like creating a pedal board. And if you think in terms of a really big pedal board, how much time that can take to dial in a tone, it's going to take at least just as long to do that. But once you get the hang of it, it comes together pretty smoothly to be able to set up an effects chain and do your assignments of how you want things controlled. And you can make it as simple as it's a very simple amplifier that allows you to switch channels or a more complex thing. And the thing with these digital units is that it's really difficult, really impossible to get just an absolutely true sounding like a tube amplifier type sound. They're coming close. They're getting pretty good, but it's really that impulse response that makes the difference between that natural sound and an unnatural sound in the digital processing realm. That's what's going to make your tone and your sound really stand out in comparison. So so this effects chain, I mean, it allows you to kind of go in. This is where you can do your amp assignment. You can add noise gate. You can change your EQ setting. And you can make your change to the impulse response in the output itself. Just by clicking on that output, you can select the impulse response that you want to use with the setup. And so this Bogner, that's the sound that you're hearing. You're hearing that Celestion impulse response. And you kind of see here, I'm showing a little bit. We've got our effects send and return. So we've got 2 of them. You can set them up, 1 in each channel. You can also reconfigure this layout. You can modify this to any degree that you want to be able to add effects. in different sequences and that kind of thing to kind of adjust this your channel options, your amplifier options, amp channel options, to be able to get a single preset that allows you to switch channels and add effects and take away effects and that kind of thing. And where that's really useful is if you have a song set, let's say you're like a tribute band or a cover band, and you've got, especially with a cover band, you could be doing a song where you want it to sound more like a Marshall, you want it to sound more like a Mesa Boogie, you want it to sound more like a Fender Twin. You could have these presets set up for the particular song that you're working on, set it up as a set list and presets before you do the show, and then you're just rolling along on your presets for each song that you're playing, and having your levels kind of preset to work best for to be stable across that that set list as much as possible. This you could go in here and you could add on the effects, you can add distortion in front of a channel so that the channel has additional distortion on it, or you can just use the amp gain itself. And so that's where these kind of amp presets are kind of set up to sound most like the particular amp that it's shooting for, just by adjusting the drive, tone, EQ, all those settings. You can get more level, you can change the tone, all that within the amp setting, and then add additional distortion by selecting your distortion type and modifying it to the particular tone that you're looking for. So as you can see, I mean, this unit does quite a lot, and I'll kind of just go through a little bit on the preset on this. Yeah, thanks for watching the video. Hopefully this helps with what you're trying to do, and if this unit is something you're interested in buying, hopefully this video kind of helps you make a decision. I'll play a little bit on this and kind of get a couple of these tones in your ears.